I think that he's being subjected to cruel and unusual punishment. And if that produces fatal consequences, which is a possibility, that doesn't bode well for the general stability of the UK, you might say. And it's not a risk that should be taken.
Breaking right now, Jordan Peterson has issued a shock warning to Elon Musk, who's quite tied up at the moment with Doge, about the state of Tommy Robinson being kept locked up at HMP Woodhill in solitary confinement. But the big news is, and you'll see this from the reply to Jordan Peterson's desperate post on X, Elon Musk says that he is watching what's going on, he is on it, and we know that he is funding Tommy Robinson's legal bill. So yet again, let me just say this is a case of the British mainstream media, the British political establishment, the British elite being put to shame because it is Jordan Peterson via the Daily Wire who is raising this issue, which really calls into question human rights in the UK, let alone anything else. Watch.
Anyways, when I talked to Ezra Levant, we discussed Tommy, and he's in solitary confinement in a maximum security prison in the UK. And he's not allowed any visitors who have a social media following, whatever that means, given that virtually everybody has at least some social media following now. And this essentially means that he'll spend 9 months in solitary for what's a civil offense. And it's been 4, and that's a long time. And his guest slots aren't filled, partly because of these restrictions. I asked Ezra, too, if Tommy was in solitary at his own request, because the prison is a dangerous place, because it's a maximum security prison, and it's full of the sort of people who might not approve of Tommy Robinson, let's put it that way. And Ezra told me that Tommy hadn't requested to be isolated in this manner, that he was willing to take his chances in the general population.
But it gets more disturbing because Jordan Peterson, in his warning to Elon Musk, goes on to say that he believes Tommy Robinson could die behind bars.
Regardless of what you think of him and what he's done, say as a whistleblower on the gang side, his punishment is exceptionally heavy-handed, and it isn't at all obvious to me that it's wise. It's also not obvious to me that he'll make it through 9 months of this intact. And Ezra was concerned for the same reasons.
And Jordan Peterson went on to say that if there were fatal consequences, it would not bode well for the UK.
I think that he's being subjected to cruel and unusual punishment. And if that produces fatal consequences, which is a possibility, that doesn't bode well for the general stability of the UK, you might say. And it's not a risk that should be taken.
And having seen that video, the former footballer Joey Barton posted on X, I saw Tommy Robinson a few weeks ago. Solitary is taking its toll. I had to sign an NDA to get in. Wish I could say more. Thanks for raising awareness, Jordan Peterson. And Alex Phillips, it is quite shocking, is it not, that it's Jordan Peterson who is raising this issue rather than any member of the British legacy media.
Right. I mean, apart from, definitely no one in the British legacy media is talking about it. No one even mentions his name, frankly, in the British legacy media. It is important to point out Rupert Lowe, of course, the Reform UK MEP, has written to the governor asking about solitary confinement. It is also true that if he wasn't in solitary confinement, he would be at great risk in a maximum security prison. So it's the big question is, was this a justifiable punishment for the offence that had been committed, which is basically a civil offence? It's not really a sort of, dangerous, high crime event. It wasn't murder or manslaughter, or, it was essentially libel. So it's a bit crazy that he's in a maximum security prison. That really should be questioned. It doesn't seem to me remotely proportionate punishment. But the establishment, the state, don't seem to have figured out what they're going to do after this. When that man, God willing, comes out of prison, as he will do one day, one assumes, unless things are, Peterson saying if there were fatal consequences, they have not figured out what they're going to do when he comes out of that prison, because he's going to look like a very different man. In theory, he'll have freedom to be able to say to people what happened to him in that prison, what it was like, the conditions he was kept under. And frankly, now he's become a massive international phenomenon. It's not just the people of Britain now who know who he is. It is the entire world. It's captured the interests of some of the most powerful people on this planet, and not just captured the interest, captured the sympathy and the support. And I don't think the states have figured out quite how they are going to handle that on his release.
But first, the reason you're watching this show is that it's becoming increasingly difficult to trust mainstream media or the so-called fact-checkers who claim to determine what is true. And there's good reason for that, given the debate over free speech, the controversy surrounding Brexit, and how Trump and other politicians challenging the status quo are portrayed. But I have the solution. It's called Ground News, and it's the best way to stay informed and cut through media bias and narratives so you can get the facts for yourself. Go to ground.news/outspoken to check it out. But let me show you this incredible website and app. It's a great app too, by the way, in action. So let's take the recent game-changing speech by J.D. Vance to the Munich Security Conference, where he tore into European governments, including ours here in the UK, for the despicable retraction of free speech. And what you can do on the website is see clearly in one place that 361 sources are covering the story. But then Ground News instantly shows how it's being covered, broken down by whether the outlets lean to the left or the right. This is called the bias distribution service. And if you scroll down, you can see every article about this topic broken down by the political position and ownership of the publication. So it means we can see quite clearly for ourselves that Newsmax and GB News gave fair and accurate coverage, focusing on how Vance finally had the guts to point out uncomfortable truths. By stark contrast, the left-wing HuffPost claimed the speech left all of Europe aghast. It didn't, HuffPost, let me tell you. While the Independent, as usual, they missed the story altogether, instead deciding to focus on a joke that Vance made about Elon Musk claiming that it bombed. What's more, Ground News gets to know you personally, providing you with the news stories you're interested in while also analysing your own biases. Now, my favourite feature is something called the blind spot feed. It surfaces upwards of 20 stories every day that you might not be hearing about because of the corruption of the mainstream media. So look, I know you love the news, but you don't trust the legacy media. So Ground News gives you the tools to understand the truth about what is going on in the world. It is the only way I read the news. It allows me to see through media bias and manipulative narratives. No more relying on the MSM to define the truth for you. Go to ground.news/outspoken to check it out. Subscribe through my link for 40% off the Vantage plan, which is what I use for unlimited access. Should say, by the way, big thanks to Ground News, by the way. They are subscriber founded. Supporting their work also supports mine. And for less than a Netflix subscription, you can get all of the world's news in one place and think for yourself. This is a game changer for the news junkies out there like me. That's ground.news/outspoken. But now, back to the show. Do you share the fear of Jordan Peterson, though, that there would be massive consequences to the UK if something were to happen tragic to Tommy Robinson behind bars?
Yeah, because we are a breaking point. We discussed this on a previous show, didn't we? The fact that you've got people who are experts in the field of civil unrest who produce reports for various intelligence operations, whether it be our own 5 and 6 or in other countries, other governments, other states, who have said Britain is on the brink. There are so many social divides. You've got economic turmoil. You have the big risk of running street battles between people of different faiths. That's already happening. We are extra vulnerable as well to KGB agents or FSB agents who may be stationed in this country, who may use any sort of unrest to stoke it up and make it worse. You know, people who infiltrate protests to turn them into riots. And then, of course, if this led on to people looting and general lawlessness, Britain could fall very quickly in a way that I don't think many British people realize. And when you look at flashpoints, when you look at the sort of triggers that could cause social unrest, which would then sweep across the country, what would unite people across the country? Well, certainly Tommy Robinson is a phenomenon. He is a figure that there are huge numbers of people around the country who, if anything happened to a hair on his head, would be absolutely appalled, angry, driven to do something, driven to demonstrate at the very least. So it is one such example of something that could end up being a catalyst in what is already a growing tinderbox country.
It's interesting, Alex, because the free speech issue when it comes to JD Vance has been dismissed, really, by most politicians in this country. But a clip of Giorgia Meloni responding to Vance at CPAC has gone viral. I wanted to play you the Italian Prime Minister and get your response off the back.
Vance was discussing something deeper: identity, democracy, freedom of speech. In short, Europe's historic role and mission. Many pretended to be outraged, calling for European pride against an American daring to lecture us. But let me tell you, as someone who is proud to be European, first, if those who were outraged had shown the same pride when Europe lost its strategic autonomy, tying its economy to autocratic regimes, or when European borders and our way of life were threatened by mass illegal migration, now we would live in a stronger Europe. CPAC understood before many others that the political and cultural battle for conservative values is not just an American battle. It is a Western battle.
I mean, Alex Phillips, I loved this. Did you?
I love her. She does no wrong. She is a goddess. I mean, she just said it. She cuts right through. She cuts right through, and she is fearless. And this is why she's got the admiration of not just people around the world, but people in her own country. Remember what the legacy media did in Italy. Oh, well, she loves Mussolini. Oh, well, she's far right. Oh, well, she's a monster. Oh, well, she's dangerous. No. Now, other world leaders can't wait to go and bask in her glory. So Keir Starmer wants to be there, standing by her side, showing how buddy they are. You know, and the people of Italy, she's one of the very few leaders in the world who, since being elected, has become even more popular. She is a class act. Thank the Lord for Giorgia Meloni. I love her.
And may there be many more of her. You being one of them, Alex Phillips, and politics in years to come. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.